I know you're gonna like it. This is the best way to start your journey. Really. Rabbi Majeski.
Yes.
This was this class where you were telling a story about a king telling everyone to not light a fire for 3 days. Was it this class?
That me.
I've been trying to figure out what teacher told the story about how like a king says that told all of the nation like not to light a fire for 3 days, and then this rabbi or like one of the Tzaddikim or whoever he was talking to said, okay, well, let's go up on the roof and see who actually is following your decree. And then someone wasn't following the decree to show that like the Jewish people, when it says don't light fire or little things, like you're still following it so long, but like when the king says it, people don't really listen. But we said it in the class.
It sounds like someone, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev. That's sort of the kind of stories that are told about him.
What
sounds like it.
Class will that have been in?
Could have been in any place.
I'll ask every teacher.
Okay, so you can check me off as one.
Okay, great.
Okay. So we're finishing off our list. Last thing on the list was, we said that one of the things that certainly characterized Darkei Chassidus is the emphasis on miracles. That Chassidim always talk about miracle stories, tell stories of the Baal Shem Tov, other Chassidic Rebbes, and we raised two questions. One question was on the tzaddikim themselves. We don't find that in earlier generations that this was something which is a big focus. There were also great people, righteous people, giants of Torah, and they probably also could have performed miracles, but we don't find that this was like done sort of as a way of inspiration, perform miracles for people. Everybody sort of had to be inspired mainly through learning. That was the main source of inspiration. So why did they choose this approach? That one of the ways of inspiring people, one of the most important ways, is through performing miracles. True, the miracles helped people. Sick people became healthy and poor people became rich, but still we don't find that this was an approach years before. And the second thing is regarding the Chassidim, that we find that Chassidim put a big emphasis on telling stories of miracles. And we always make a point to tell our children stories at a Shabbos table, at a Yom Tov table, a Malava Malka. Like, why is it such a very big part of our education to tell stories of tzaddikim, and miracle, especially miracle stories? So, and of course, the third question is, how does it fit in to what we said is the thread that connects all these things about the Baal Shem Tov? How does it fit in? So the answer is like this. What did we say about the Baal Shem Tov? That the main point of the Baal Shem Tov, what the Baal Shem Tov came to teach and came to accomplish, was mainly, more than anything else, this was sort of the thread that connects everything, was to strengthen and reinforce the neshama of Yiddishkeit, which we explained, the emotional bond with Hashem, the deeper bond with Hashem, not just technically doing what's right and not doing what's wrong, but to develop a deeper emotional bond with Hashem. And that expresses itself in three things: love for Hashem, fear of Hashem, and emunah in Hashem. These three things. So this explains why in the times of the Baal Shem Tov, there was a need for the miracles, because this was the area where there was a weakness. What's the point of a miracle? So one of the things that is very common in Chassidus is that one of Hashem's name is Elokim. And that the word Elokim, the numerical value of the word Elokim is 86. So what's so special about 86? The numerical value of the word Hateva, which means the laws of nature, is also 86. And what does that mean? How does that relate to the name Elokim? So the answer is there are two names of Hashem. One is the name we don't pronounce, Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is the name of Hashem, which you'll find in Chumash all the time. And the other name you find in Chumash is Elokim. The difference is, one of the explanations about the difference is that miracles, when they happen, the Hashem is manifesting his name, Yud Kei Vav Kei, in the world. When things happen according to the laws of nature, that's connected to the name of Elokim. And the difference between the two names are that on one hand, Hashem wants to shine his light in this world. On the other hand, Hashem has to create some sort of a filter that the light shouldn't shine in all its brightness. Because if it would, the world couldn't be the physical, natural world that it is. So therefore, Hashem has to sort of conceal the light. And the analogy that's given is it's like the sun shining, and there's sort of some sort of a case around the sun, or let's say a bulb that's a very bright light. In fact, it's so bright it would be blinding. So you put something around the bulb, which covers it up, and it diminishes the light a little bit. It shouldn't be so bright and it wouldn't be so blinding. So if Hashem's light would shine in the world as it is, for Shem Havaya, it would be an infinite light, and the world, which is finite, couldn't contain it. So Hashem also conceals that light, hides that light. It shouldn't shine with its full brightness. And how does that conceal? Through the name Elokim. And what is Elokim? Nature, the laws of nature. In other words, what is it in this world that conceals Hashem's presence? It's nature. In fact, if you meet someone who says that they don't believe in God, they say that they're an atheist. What do they believe in? Nature. It's all nature. I don't know why Mother Nature, but nature. Nature is brilliant, and nature is this, and nature is that. But basically, because nature is a certain pattern, which we see is fixed it's a system which is fixed in creation. And it looks like that's why things happen the way they happen, because of the laws of nature. So when a person sees a miracle, somebody was sick, and God forbid, the doctors say there's no way that this person's life could be saved. And in spite of what all the doctors say, the person survives and thrives. That's a miracle. But when you see that, it brings out more openly that there's a higher presence than nature, which is Hashem. Hashem should help that right now we'll see a big miracle happening in the Russian-Ukraine thing. I'm not telling Hashem how to do it because I have a few ideas, but I think I'll let him figure it out. But let it just be a miracle, a big miracle, and all the lives will be saved and it'll be back to peace. There'll be a miracle. Something really happens that no one would expect in a million years, miraculous. The feeling of all people will be, wow, you see Hashem intervened. That's how people will feel. Like that young lady who spoke in the dorm and said that she was saved from the tsunami and she was saved from a bomb. When you see a miracle happen, you sense a higher presence than nature, which is Hashem. So in the times of the Baal Shem Tov, the reason why there was that lack of emotional bond, there was the lack of that love, fear, and faith in Hashem, was because people were starting to focus more on the technical part of Judaism. Do this, don't do that, do it this way, don't do it that way, learn Torah, knowledge, academic, action. not so much on the godly aspect in the Torah, the godly aspect in the mitzvahs. Through the performance of miracles, it brought the presence of Hashem so much more to the forefront. It brought an unprecedented awareness and consciousness of Hashem, and that affected everything else that we did. Yes, sir.
I think, like, right before you called me, I realized you might have answered this. And I think I remember your answers, but like, I don't really know how to phrase this, but I feel like part of the reason that godliness is concealed is that we have free choice. So I think I asked you before if a miracle takes away from that free choice, and you were like, no, because people could still choose not to believe it.
So let me tell you a little story to answer that question. A real story. Both are real stories. One story is with Baal Shem Tov. Another one is a story that happened here in New York. This is a story that happened with my father-in-law, who used to be in a shul there on whoever knows the streets, New York and Empire Boulevard. There's a shul there right near opposite the police station. One day somebody walks into the shul and he says, I have an interesting story with your Rebbe. He wasn't a Chabad person. It was a religious person, not Chabad. Interesting with your Rebbe, but I'm sure you'll appreciate it. And he tells the story that he has a friend who has a neighbor, a doctor. And this neighbor, the doctor, had a child that was born, unfortunately, she was crippled, she couldn't walk. And he's a doctor himself. He had all sorts of contacts to big doctors, but he couldn't, unfortunately, find anybody that could cure her. And one day she was getting a little bit older and starting to interfere with her life. So one day, friends of him said to him, why don't you go to one of these rebbes? People have stories. He was a Jew living in neighborhoods, which were Jewish neighborhoods, and they have these Chassidic rebbes that they have stories of helping people. Why don't you go? So at first he was resisting the idea. It's not what he believes in. But then they said, listen, if this can help your daughter, what do you care? Just try it. Where should he go to? So they decided, in those days, there weren't that many Chassidic rebbes. It was the 1950s. So they decided to go to the Lubavitcher Rebbe because he's much more understanding and accepting of secular Jews. So that's going to be a good place to go. So he comes to the Rebbe and tells the Rebbe what the story is. And the Rebbe says to him that if you want Hashem to give you something, you should give him something. And you should hang up a mezuzah on your daughter's doorpost. So he told the Rebbe, we're not really religious, but I'm willing to give $1,000 for the Lubavitcher movement. The Rebbe said, no, you need to hang up a mezuzah on your doorpost. So he said, I would even give $3,000 in those days, the 1950s. It's a huge sum of money. The Rebbe said, no, what Hashem wants you to do is hang up a mezuzah on her door. The Rebbe wouldn't let up. Comes back home. His wife was even more upset. I'm not going to make holes in the walls, and it's not our way. And they begged her. Maybe he helped so many people. This is your daughter. It's her life. Anyway, they. I think she also couldn't speak. She was partially paralyzed. So they put up the mezuzah, and then a few days later, one night she got up in the middle of the night. She sat up herself, which she never did before, and she asked for water. They were in shock. He was a doctor. He took care of her. It was fine. It was movement. She was doing a few things that she never did before, but that's all she did. So he said he wants to see the Rebbe again. He comes back to the Rebbe, tells the Rebbe that that really something miraculous happened, and I'm very thankful. But it's not enough. I mean, I wanted to have a life like all other children. So the Rebbe said, if you want Hashem should give you more, you have to give him more. Your wife should start lighting Shabbos candles. So my wife is really not into this. She was more against religion than he was. And it's not good. And I ever said, but your wife needs to light Shabbos candles, and Shabbos candles. And he went home, and again, they convinced her to light Shabbos candles. And after that, there was another major breakthrough in her health. And that's how things advanced. And he told my father-in-law, this is how we finished off the story. Right now, she walks on her own. She walks with a cane. She's 12 years old. She walks on her own. And then he adds, I don't believe this was a miracle. I think just, this the time came in her body that things straightened out. That's all. But I know you would appreciate it as a miracle story. What I'm trying to bring out is, yeah, you can have a miracle right in your face. But if you're not sort of open, then even the miracle would leave room for free choice. Hashem doesn't take that away from us. There's a similar story with the Baal Shem Tov about someone, also interesting, about someone who had a child that wasn't able to walk. And his wife begged him to go to the Baal Shem Tov. He didn't want to, but he did it reluctantly. And when he came to the Baal Shem Tov, he told his daughter, you wait here in the wagon, and I'll go into the rabbi. And he goes in, but because he did it reluctantly, and he didn't really believe, and he was a very wealthy man, so he's a little bit arrogant, he took a bag of gold coins, gave it to the Baal Shem Tov, and said, here, make my daughter healthy. A very disrespectful way of saying it. Baal Shem Tov took the bag, threw it out the window, and said, I don't need your money. And he sees his bag flying out the window. His eyes are following the bag. It falls on the floor, and all the gold coins are rolling out of the bag. And then, shockingly, he sees his daughter, who couldn't walk, get out of the wagon, jump down on the floor, and start collecting all the gold coins. So he races out of the room, grabs her by the arm, and says, quick, let's get out of here before he's going to say that it's his miracle. The point of the story is, there's always free choice. I think it says that even when the sea split, when the Yidden went out of Mitzrayim, there could be people standing right there and they'll still say it's because of this, because of that. But there's no doubt that when there is a miracle, it's godliness more revealed. And unless there's strong resistance, the natural reaction of a person will say, wow, I saw with my own eyes God's hand, because that's what a miracle is. So being that it's possible to learn Torah, but not be so much focused on the godliness in Torah, more on the academic part of Torah. It's possible to do mitzvahs and to focus more on the benefits of family purity, the benefits of observing Shabbos, the benefits of other mitzvahs, not so much the godliness in it, but all the benefits that there are when you do these kind of things. And the same is with everything else, character traits, the benefits of leading a moral, ethical life. The Baal Shem Tov wanted to encourage the people and help them bring out that everything that's done is part of our relationship with Hashem. And it's all about our emotional bond with Hashem. So therefore, by performing the miracles and the same with the other Chassidic Rebbes, it brought Hashem's presence to such an open way that it affected everything. We felt Hashem's presence. It brought a consciousness of Hashem's presence, that everything that people do, they felt the godliness in it, in their learning, in their davening, in their mitzvahs. And that's something which was sort of instrumental in accomplishing what the Baal Shem Tov wanted to accomplish, to strengthen the soul of Judaism. So this is also the reason why we tell these miracle stories. When you tell a story and someone hears about something miraculous that happened, something that happened which is totally beyond nature, and especially if you know who this happened to, who the person is. And now with technology, we reached a point, I remember hearing stories years ago, but you always don't know, it's very vague. Who did it happen to? Did it really happen? Is it broken telephone? Is it exactly the way the story is told? Today, you go on Chabad.org, you can actually listen to the person who it happened to, tell the story. This happened to his child, this happened to his wife, this happened to him, this happened to his boss at work, exactly with the details. And when you listen to a story like that, of course, it's inspiring. Well, what does it inspire? It makes us aware of a godly presence that's higher than nature, that's in this world. And that awareness of Hashem brings that awareness into the davening, into the mitzvahs, into everything that we do. Now, it's true that Torah is a very beautiful academic exercise, but that's only the exterior. That's not what it's all about. It's more about, connecting to Hashem. It's about love for Hashem. And the same thing with mitzvahs. There is a beautiful way of explaining psychologically how the laws of family purity is a formula for a happier marriage, and how Shabbos is a formula for a happily family life, and how different mitzvahs are formulas for happiness in life and feeling more purpose in life. But nevertheless, that's only the external reason. The deeper reason is, this is how I'm bonding with Hashem. These mitzvahs are godly. and the Torah is godly. And through being involved in it, it enhances my relationship with Hashem. So this is the conclusion of all the things we spoke about. To sum it up, that Chassidus is mainly focused. Doesn't mean that's the only thing we do. Of course, you learn everything else in Torah, but it's mainly focused in this direction. What can be done to strengthen the sort of soul of Judaism, that emotional bond, that deeper emotional bond, which is love, fear, and faith in Hashem. Yeah.
But how can we do something that are really fun just for Hashem? Like Shabbat, like
How can we do something that's just fun?
that are good for human, like Shabbat is resting or etc. All the things that also are
Very simple, very simple. Anything I do, imagine a person, I'm giving an example, that they enjoy sports. Sports is not godliness. But when they engage in sports, for them, they feel relaxed, they feel happy, they feel good about themselves. And when they feel that way, they can serve Hashem better when it comes to davening, learning, and doing everything else. When you're under stress, when you're under pressure, and you're unhappy, we can't serve Hashem properly. So some people become happy from food, some people become happy from sports, other kinds of things that you do for fun, for relaxation, going for a walk, going on a trip. But the truth is, everything we do ultimately could lead to me serving Hashem in a better way.
sometimes we do some things because like it's good.
Not so loud.
Sometimes we can
We're not tzaddikim, we are normal human beings. We have a nefesh of the kids, but we also have a nefesh of Bahamas, and we're human. So of course I know that when I'm eating this food that's good, I just enjoy good food, or I enjoy a good game, or I enjoy watching a good show. But even the fact that a person would even think in his mind, but this makes me more relaxed. This makes me more less stressful, and therefore I can do what I need to do as a Jew in a better way. That itself makes what I do something that's more godly. Just thinking along those lines. Even if I know that's not the real reason that I'm doing it. I'm doing it because I'm human. But still, it's something we can help. And let's remember, we're not on the level of bittul b'mitzias, that means. Yeah.
I mean, also it is, like, I mean, even if it's like you're enjoying like something that people are doing or like that someone made, like, that's like it's still Hashem's creation. You're appreciating Hashem's creation, and that's you're getting joy from that. And even though it's not like directly like serving Hashem,
Right.
it'll still bring you closer to Hashem because you're appreciating it.
Right. Rotem is asking that if you'd really analyze it, am I really doing this because I appreciate Hashem's creation? Like I want to go travel and see mountains and valleys and different countries, oceans. And is this all part? It's like davening. I'm just want to run around to see Hashem. Or I just enjoy nature like anybody else. So it's true that we're humans and we enjoy nature. Some people enjoy that. But nevertheless, if this brings me, I mean, of course, everything in a certain limited way, not in a way that I'm compromising Yiddishkeit because of it, then it's a different story. But if at the end of the day, if this makes me feel more relaxed and happier and less stress, this will enhance my serving Hashem, and it's all part of what I'm here for. On the contrary, people who refrain from that because they say, I'm wasting time, usually it does the opposite. It makes them more stressed. It makes them feel more pressured. And it makes them feel unhappy with themselves. And at the end of the day, they're going to serve Hashem in a way which is worse than had it been otherwise.
Also, we were put in this world to live. We have to live with the right intentions, but we're still here to live. And part of the thing is to
Right, being that Hashem created us as humans, not as angels.
yeah.
That's part of being human.
So we're meant to just
Right,
be in the world and live. We have to think
exactly. Okay. So now that we finished this, I want to start, we still have a few minutes, start the next part of this booklet. If you can turn the page. Everyone has a booklet, by the way? Anybody missing? You don't have a booklet. Yeah. And we're going to go to page 4 of this book. The number's on the bottom. I mentioned to you that even though we just gave this list of 8 things, but the most controversial of all 8 is the Chassid Rebbe relationship. It's the most misunderstood, and people don't understand why. Number one, is it necessary, or why is it even permissible? And why can I just connect to Hashem? Why do I have to have a tzaddik? So I'd like to go into this a little bit, because the truth of the matter is, the idea of a tzaddik, which means a righteous person, is not something which is reserved to Chassidim only. Anyone who studies Torah knows that there are people that are tzaddikim, they're righteous people. Avraham Avinu was a tzaddik, and Noach was a tzaddik, and Yitzchak and Yaakov and Moshe, these are all tzaddikim. What does a tzaddik mean? A person who's righteous, he's above and beyond the rest, and his level of serving God is definitely on the extreme, not like the description I just gave before. They're totally immersed only in spirituality, tzaddikim. So everyone agrees to that. But the issue that people are bringing up is, why does there have to be such a connection to a tzaddik? Yes, there are tzaddikim, and they're an inspiration, but the connection to a Rebbe that Chassidim have is so much more than in other circles, the way they're connected to their sort of Rosh Yeshiva, which is the head of a yeshiva. Even though they consider the person a tzaddik, their lives is not so intertwined with their lives. I mean, just to give an example, Chassidim always, you look back, you'll see a lot of different publications that were given out. Chassidim were always concerned about what is going on. What did the Rebbe speak about this week? Did anything happen in the Rebbe's courtyard? Any special people visit the Rebbe? What did the Rebbe say? Did the Rebbe come out with everybody doing something new, a new campaign? And this was always the talk of the Chassidim. In many other circles, there might be someone, let's say here in New York, there was someone who lived in Manhattan, whose name was Rabbi Moshe Feinstein. He was considered the greatest authority of halacha in the world. All Jews who were Torah-following Jews considered him the greatest authority of halacha. Where was he? In the Lower East Side of Manhattan. But if you would stop a Jew who lives in Israel or anywhere else in the world, even here, a Jew who lives in Borough Park, and say, so do you know what was going on in this rabbi's yeshiva lately? So how should I know? I'm not there. I live in Borough Park. In other words, it wasn't something that they had to know. If you would come out and make some sort of a global statement, yeah, he would follow it. But his life and his thoughts and his mind was not on what's going on, what that rabbi said today, what did he teach, what did he talk about. By Chassidim was very different. All Chassidim, very, very involved with everything the Rebbe teaches, and wanted to know what happened by the Farbrengen and which people he visited, and maybe there's something new that he came out with. In other words, this connection that's the part that people don't understand. Why is it necessary? And is there a precedent for this? So the difference between the way a chassid understands a tzaddik and the way other people understand the tzaddik, I'll give the main point, and then next week we'll go more into the details, is the first line on top of the page. Generally speaking, if someone would ask you in this rush, I should really ask you, but we don't have enough time, so I'll ask and I'll give the answer. If someone would ask you, how would you define a tzaddik? I would say like this. A tzaddik is someone who is extraordinary in Torah study, extraordinary in observance of mitzvahs, extraordinary in love for a fellow Jew, extraordinary in his character traits, extraordinary in all these things, and that's the definition of a tzaddik. In other words, everybody who follows Torah studies Torah, but this person's knowledge of Torah is vast. This person's depth of understanding is beyond comparison. So he's a tzaddik. He's much more than the average person. And the same with mitzvahs. Most of us, we do the right thing. Sometimes we fail. No, this is a person that does everything that you're supposed to do and is totally into it. And he makes sure not to do anything. His fear of God is 100%. What do Chassidim say? We don't say, anything different. On the contrary, we say this is true, but there's another aspect, another element to a tzaddik, which is even more and beyond everything that was just mentioned. I mean, just to give you an example, the Rabbi Maharash, who was the fourth Rebbe of Chabad, his story, when he was a little boy, he used to get spending money from his father once a month. What did he do with the spending money? Mainly, he bought Torah books. But in those days, a small little shtetl like Lubavitch couldn't accommodate a bookstore of Torah books. How many people do you have, and how often are they going to buy new books? So where did they get their books from? They were traveling salesmen. They had a wagon load of Sfarim, and they would travel from one city to another city, and they would sell the books. Everybody knew once a month or once in 2 months, they would come around and you can buy your books. One day they came to the town, and the Rebbe Maharash, who was a little boy, he wanted to buy more books, didn't have enough money. So he came to his father and said, could you please give me my spending money in advance next month? So he says, why do you need the money now? So he said, because I want to buy, the guy who sells the books is here now, I want to buy new Torah books. So he said to him, and all the books you have already, you learned everything? That you're buying new ones? So the Rebbe Rash said, I looked around the room, and my father had bookcases from the floor to the ceiling, all 4 walls. And I noticed that today he was buying more books, and the carpenter was actually building a new bookcase in the other room because there wasn't enough room. So he said to his father, and you know all these books that you're buying new books? So his father said, test me. So he walked over to the bookcase, pulled out a book at random. He gave him the name of the book and the page number, and his father read to him what it says on that page. Okay? So he took another book, pulled it out, and he read to him the name of the book and the page number, and his father read to him what it says in that book. And he did it 3 times, then he stopped. And basically, what do we see? Here's that's the definition of a tzaddik. You have hundreds of books, it's like a computer, hundreds of books, and you can tell you what it says in each book on this page or that page, read it verbatim. So a tzaddik is not someone who has knowledge of Torah, but extraordinary knowledge of Torah. So what could be more than that? Do we continue next week?
Exactly.
You knew the answer, right?
Yeah, I knew that's what you're gonna say.
Okay. Did you get the message from Sigal? I asked someone to send it around.
No.
No?
What message?
She's the mother of that child that we were saying Tillim for.
Yeah.
She sent, you got the message?
No.
She sent a thank you message? Okay, I'll check it out.
The surgery was good?
The surgery saved his, whatever, his life was saved. That's for sure. Other things, they needed more bracha, but she sent a very heartfelt thank you. How do I send it to somebody that can send it to everybody else?
You can send it to me.
Yeah? Okay. I'll send it to you and we'll send it to everybody else.
For her birthday, she
Yeah.
had cards.
Yes.
Remember she had cards? Yeah.
That was the boy Chaim Yecheskel Yudalev. Then let me see.
I'm trying to figure out my eyes and then they call me back. So I didn't answer that. And then she was like, you should get a new retina specialist. I'm like, yeah, but also I don't really see the point. She's like, yeah, that's fair.
So it's about. I didn't know you were then.
Why? I don't have your number
No,
here.
my doctor from Boston called me.
What is the number,
Really
sorry?
do anything, that's why,
914.
like, no desire to like.
914
Yeah.
261.
California.
Oh, here it is. Okay, got it.
Yeah, but it's a children's hospital, so I changed that.
Yeah.
Which,
Is it still the mentally or still a child?
maybe they'll keep you.
My grandma said she's like 7.
Okay.
She says I'm getting older, but I'm never growing up.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll see each other.
No, not for a while, not till I see
Oh,
my back.
Thank you, Rabbi Majeski.
Very welcome. I'll see you next week, Mirza Hashem.
Yes, God willing. See you soon. Take care.
Message. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Keep in touch, keep in touch. Of course, let me know when you're in, hopefully very soon. Buy her posters.
Her,